Yo, what is good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson, and I am your host. The date is August 5th, 2025. What day of the week is it today? It's Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Recording this about 1 p.m. This is episode 39 of our podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be doing a mock draft, and not only any mock draft, it's going to be my first mock draft of the offseason. I know it's a little bit crazy. The offseason has really flew by, but we're in preseason football time. Like, we already had the Hall of Fame game. And over the weekend, I actually, if you're watching the video and if you do want to see the video, head over to the YouTube channel, Fantasy Football Prodigy over on YouTube. But if you have the video, I am wearing a Vikings shirt. I am a Vikings fan, but over the weekend, I was at Lambeau Field. I may or may have not dated it into a Packers fandom family. That's a hard thing to say. Packers fandom family. And they went to this family night at Lambeau. I said I'd go with. I did wear a Vikings jersey. I opted for the Favre jersey. I thought that was a nice compromise. The Vikings purple number 4 Favre jersey. But I got to say, if you guys don't know what the family night is for the Packers training camp, basically it's actually pretty cool. Not rooting for the Packers, obviously, but I think like the stadium was pretty full. Like, Lambeau Field was basically full. There were obviously empty seats, but it wasn't like a sold out prime time game, but it was pretty close. And it's just training camp. Like, they do a little scrimmaging, they do some drills, and they give away a bunch of like prizes and stuff to the fans by seat number. So it was a really cool event. Other than the fact that it was disgusting because it was a Packers event. But anyways, football is back is what I'm trying to say. So before we get into the mock draft, we're going to get into just some of the bigger news that's happened recently. And then before we get into that, just a reminder to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast. And like I said, if you want the video version of the podcast, head over to YouTube, Fantasy Football Prodigy over on YouTube, and you can see my ugly mug drafting the best team you've ever seen assembled. All right. So really quick, just going to fly through some of the big news items here. Noah Fant signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. That is kind of a big deal because Mike Gesicki, the presumed starting tight end for the Bengals, at least before this move, he was definitely like a streaming option, especially if and when T. Higgins, the wide receiver 2 there in Cincinnati, were to miss games. Last year, whenever T. Higgins missed time, Mike Gesicki became a very intriguing tight end streaming option. Now that Noah Fant is there, that definitely muddies the waters. I don't know if one of them is going to take over as the clear starter and the other one's going to just ride the bench all the time. I'm kind of projecting it's going to be a bit of a split because both players are, pretty good tight end talents, not elite. But that definitely hurts Mike Gesicki. And the Seahawks no longer wanted Noah Fant there. So another thing to keep in mind with that transaction with Noah Fant leaving Seattle is that it does open up some tight end opportunities for AJ Barner of the Seahawks, as well as Elijah Arroyo, a very intriguing rookie tight end prospect. He is a very good athlete and flashed at times in college, but he definitely dealt with injuries. That's kind of the biggest knock on him. In a dynasty rookie draft, I was deciding between Arroyo and Mason Taylor of the Jets. I ended up going with Mason Taylor, and Taylor looks like he'll be the number 2 for the Jets at this point behind Garrett Wilson. Like, the number 2 receiver there is probably like Josh Reynolds at this point. So I'm still confident with that pick, but this move does open up a big opportunity for Arroyo. He's a rookie. He got drafted in the 2nd round. So yeah, a little bit of tight end movement in the landscape. Who knows if any of these guys will even really matter. Usually there's only like 2 or 3 true difference makers at tight end, but when you're streaming the position, these are some guys to take note of. And then if you haven't heard, Cowboys superstar pass rusher Micah Parsons requested a trade. The Cowboys and Jerry Jones have been really messing that situation up. If anyone deserves a new contract, it's Micah Parsons. He's, one of the best defensive players in the entire league, and he's earned his money. So And from what I understand, like he's been very reasonable with his requests to get a contract. At least, that's what the player is saying. Like, and he wanted to get the contract done early, just wanted to lock up financial security. And the team has been very resistant to give him the contract. So he's requested a trade at this point. And, who knows what's true with all this, but Jerry Jones and the Cowboys have kind of been screwing things up in that regard lately. So I'm tempted to believe that it's more the Cowboys' fault than Micah Parsons, because I do think Parsons wants to stay in Dallas. But yeah, he has requested a trade, so we'll see what happens there. That's a huge move, and it sucks to be a Cowboys fan. I'm sorry if you're in that boat. Another move: Eagles acquired cornerback Jacorian Bennett from the Raiders in exchange for defensive tackle Thomas Booker. So obviously, the Raiders have a big DT need with Wilkins being released. Very important defensive tackle, very good player. He got cut by the Raiders. It's kind of a whole drama situation, but they traded for Thomas Booker, and I don't know much about either of these players, but I heard that Jacorian Bennett is actually like a pretty decent player, and he might actually factor into the Phillies secondary, which is already good. But he's going to be more of a depth piece. Like they obviously have, a very good DB room in Philly, so this is just more talent added there. And then I guess this isn't really news, but it came up and I thought it was interesting. Joe Burrow and the starters will play several series in the preseason opener against the Eagles on Thursday. That's a little weird because I feel like a lot of times, especially lately, you don't even see starters playing in the preseason hardly, especially a guy like, Joe Burrow. But, the Bengals have started really slow the last few seasons. Maybe this is a move to kind of get him going faster, get him, I guess I don't know off the top of my head if they've played much in the preseason before, but it's just interesting news. And Mike Gesicki is not going to play in that preseason opener. We talked about him earlier as the, Bengals starting tight end. They bring in Noah Fant, and Gesicki is dealing with a hamstring injury and won't play in the opener. So that even gives Noah Fant, maybe more of a leg up on getting playing time there. Quarterback Teddy Bridgewater signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's probably going to be the backup there. I believe Kyle Trask is still on the roster. But it's, it is Baker Mayfield's team at quarterback, obviously. But Kyle Trask is still there, and Teddy Bridgewater gets added to that quarterback room. We saw him last with the Detroit Lions, and then he retired, and he was coaching high school, and now he's back. So, he's signing a 1-year contract, and as a Vikings fan, Teddy Two Gloves, I'm very, he's my guy. So I'm glad that he was able to, find a job. And if you guys don't know, he was suspended from his high school job for providing impermissible benefits to his players. It didn't seem like it was some sort of corrupt thing. Like he was like paying for food and Uber rides to practices and stuff, but it seemed like a very wholesome thing where he was helping his community and he got suspended for it. So it's kind of messed up that that's how it works, but you have to wonder, like, if that didn't happen, would he be working in high school still? Like, is that the only reason he's back in the NFL? Because he got suspended, or I don't know. Would he have come back regardless? That's an interesting thing to think about. But in breaking news here, the Cleveland Browns, have signed quarterback Tyler Huntley. If you know one thing about the Browns, it's that they need another backup level quarterback. Okay. Having Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett added to the team, as well as drafting rookies Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders, that wasn't enough for them. Okay. They want to bring in Tyler Snoop Huntley. All right. We're all hoping that Joe Flacco, who is now 40 years old, we're hoping he's the starting quarterback. And apparently he's the only one that's like actually healthy right now. All the other guys have missed time, and they just wanted to add another quarterback to make that situation even more disgusting. But we're all hoping and praying that it's a Joe Flacco led offense. I don't know if any quarterback there is going to play all 17 games. I just don't think that's going to happen. But yeah. And then here's another huge piece of news here before we get into the mock draft. I think this will be the last thing we discuss here. Rams running back Kyren Williams agrees to terms on a 3-year, $33 million contract extension. This is huge. Kyren Williams of the LA Rams is a fantasy monster. The only real question mark for him was his contract. Was he going to get a new contract? Was he going to be with the team long term? Because the biggest thing with these running backs is honestly contract. It's even more important than their actual skill level, in my opinion, because if they're not locked up long term, they could be gone in an instant. But this is a huge contract, huge news, especially in Dynasty. I mean, I was already confident in him for redraft, but for Dynasty purposes, him signing a $33 million contract includes $23 million guaranteed. That's huge. He was heading into his 4th and final season of his rookie contract, and he was a 2022 5th round pick. So it's really nice to see a late draft pick like that, get a payday. And I know his efficiency dipped a little bit last year. His schedule was a little bit tough as well. It's another thing that people don't always talk about, but he's a good player on a good offense. So the other big thing with the Rams right now is Stafford and his back injury. Is he going to be healthy and ready to go for the season? Because that plays a huge factor. I mean, if Stafford is there, you have Puka, you got DeVonta Adams, you got Kyren Williams, you got a couple tight end options there where it's like, okay, this offense might be great for fantasy, but if Stafford isn't there, the whole team takes a hit. So that's going to be something to monitor here. But Kyren Williams got that contract, and his running back looking for a contract counterpart, James Cook, still hasn't had anything happen. I don't think the Bills are going to give him a big contract. That's why I traded James Cook in my Dynasty League. I can pull up what that trade was here, but I don't know. The vibes are bad around James Cook. And where is this trade? So I traded James Cook here. My trades. Cook. Where is it? Cook. How long ago did I make this trade? Jeepers. Here we go. So I traded. Bro, how long ago did I trade? Okay, so I traded away James Cook for James Conner, who was actually on my team before. So little interesting. And this is a Dynasty League, by the way. So I traded James Conner a while ago thinking like, oh, he's not going to be in the league for long. He's getting older. And then, I might have traded him either when he was with Pittsburgh or when he first got to Arizona. And he's been nothing but great since then. So I got him back. So obviously got a little bit older there. You'd probably rather have Cook over Connor in 2025. But honestly, I think it's pretty close. And then in addition to that, I also got a 2025 first round pick, which turned into Kaleb Johnson. So I gave away James Cook. I got James Conner and Kaleb Johnson. I'm pretty happy with that trade, especially because, the team I traded him to is probably the other best team in the league. I won the championship last year, but his team is probably the best on paper, or at least one of them, and he's won a championship or two. But he has Josh Allen, so it kind of minimizes the upside there, where you have the Bills running back and quarterback in that room. But James Cook, his like opportunities aren't necessarily what you want. He's not a true workhorse. The Bills always are using other people. The contract situation now is a little bit murky for his future. So, I'm kind of happy that I was able to offload James Cook. And I had just traded for him last season when he had that crazy touchdown outlier season. That's the other thing, is I don't think he's going to get, 16 rushing touchdowns, 18 total touchdowns again. So I traded for him when his value was kind of suppressed, got an 18 touchdown season and a championship out of him. And then I traded him away. And in Dynasty, I'm always willing to trade away a running back. Granted, in this case, I got 2 running backs in return, one of them being older, but, Kaleb Johnson's a young rookie with some upside. So hopefully that works out for me and we can run it back for a championship. But enough yapping, chat. It's time to get into the mock draft here. I'm not sure where I want to put my face cam. If you're watching on the YouTube, where's the best place to put this? Probably over here, honestly. Maybe right here. I'll move it if I need to, but all right, we're going to get into our mock draft. First mock draft of the 2025 season. This is a 12-team half PPR snake draft, just standard redraft league here. When I say standard, I shouldn't say standard. That means non-PPR. It's a half PPR redraft league here, 12 teams. Before we get into it, remember to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast. And if you want to see any other format of draft, whether it's league size, super flex, PPR, non-PPR, did I say league size? I think it did. Super flex even. We could do a super flex. Whatever you guys want to see, comment it down below. I'm probably going to do more mock drafts as we continue through the preseason here, but I also want to make sure that, you know, if there's something that people want to see, you know, then maybe I'm more likely to do that. So we're going to start the draft here. I'm just taking the 6th spot right in the middle of this 12-team draft. So we're going to start here. Yes, I would like to start the draft. Okay. This audio is playing through the speaker. I'm just gonna mute that. Okay, and we're good. So Bijan Robinson goes off the board number 1. Oh, I should have also said this is a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league. Okay, and we got 1 quarterback and 1 tight end. Okay, so Bijan Robinson goes off the board at 1-1. I'd probably go Jamar Chase there, but Jamar Chase goes with the 1-2. So those are kind of the consensus number 1 and number 2 picks. Then Puka Nacua, I should say the team name just for in case anyone doesn't know. Bijan Robinson, running back of the Atlanta Falcons. Jamar Chase, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Puka Nacua, wide receiver of the LA Rams, goes 3rd. I'm not saying he's not worthy of that pick. He's a very, very great player. But with the 3rd overall pick, just with Stafford dealing with his own injury situation, as well as Puka Nacua sometimes missing time, I might opt to lean somewhere else in that case. But next off the board goes Saquon Barkley, running back of the Philadelphia Eagles. Had a great, 2,000-yard season last year, won people leagues. But, he's getting older and he's coming off of a super high volume year that extended all the way into the Super Bowl. That's a lot of wear and tear on your body, especially for an older running back. The question with him is going to be durability. Also, are the Eagles going to be able to just run the ball as much as they did last year? Or is Jalen Hurts going to have to actually, throw the ball a little bit? Because last year, it was pretty much a Saquon Barkley show. I think we're going to see a little bit more of a split there. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, running back of the Detroit Lions, goes with the 1-5. I drafted both of these guys in a league last year in my main non-PPR league. And they got me to the championship. I actually didn't win, surprisingly, with those 2 on my team. But they were awesome. And I'm on the clock here. If you look at who's left on the board for running backs, you got Derrick Henry, Genty, McCaffrey, and Devon Achane. I like a few of those running backs, but if you look at wide receiver here, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Justin Jefferson is one of my favorite players in the league. He is dealing with a hamstring injury right now. It's probably going to be fine, but that is a little bit worrisome. Especially on top of the fact that, we have for all intents and purposes, a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy stepping in there. I personally think JJ McCarthy has a good chance of being a solid quarterback, especially in an offense that just made Sam Darnold look like a Hall of Famer, other than when, the Lions, made him look like the worst player in the league because the pressure got to him. But, he's not a quarterback who thrives well under a pass rush. But there's a few question marks with Jefferson, whereas CeeDee Lamb over here, he has that rapport with Dak Prescott, and he's, in my opinion, just as good for fantasy as Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson is probably the best receiver in the league. Maybe you could put Jamar Chase in that category, but CeeDee Lamb is right up there. He's got the rapport with Dak Prescott. The schedule is a little bit tough to start the year. At Philly, at home against the Giants, on the road in Chicago against Green Bay, at the Jets. But to me, it doesn't matter that much. I think CeeDee Lamb is good enough where the schedule doesn't really matter. And even if the team is losing by a lot, that only means, they're going to be trailing and they're going to have to go to CeeDee Lamb. So this hurts me to do, to not take Justin Jefferson here, but I am going to go CeeDee Lamb. Amon-Ra St. Brown was also in the conversation, but I think Lamb and Jefferson have a little bit more upside, although Amon-Ra is extremely good, extremely consistent. So maybe I'll regret not going Amon-Ra, but I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb here as my first pick. Next off the board goes Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions, who we talked about. Oh, excuse me. It was Justin Jefferson and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants, a stud young receiver, just got quarterback question marks there in New York. Derrick Henry goes off the board with the 110. That's a great pick. Christian McCaffrey at the 111. Very high upside pick. Only question mark is, can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, that's the best pick in the draft right there. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver of the Jacksonville Jags. They just brought in, oh my God, what's his name? They brought in the rookie. Why am I forgetting his name? He was like a top draft pick. Oh my God, Travis Hunter. My goodness, I can't believe I almost forgot Travis Hunter's name. I did forget it. AJ Brown, wide receiver of the Eagles, goes next. Ashton Genty, rookie running back for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that's a good pick there. I mean, I know he's a rookie, but I think that offense is going to be good. They brought in Geno Smith. They have Brock Bowers, who went a few picks later. Like, I think that offense is going to be moving. Nico Collins of the Texans at wide receiver goes 2-3. Devon Achane goes 2-4. I like that pick there. And then Brock Bowers, tight end of the Las Vegas Raiders, goes 2-5. You got to invest early to get Bowers, but to me, he is the clear number one tight end. He's not my favorite value. I'm hoping I can swing my favorite value later in this draft. But after that, Bucky Irving, running back of the Tampa Bay Bucks, goes next. And then I'm on the clock here. So I have my wide receiver superstar in CeeDee Lamb. On the board right now, top options are Drake London at wide receiver. Well, let's go position by position. So, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, those quarterbacks are all there. I'm not going to go for a quarterback yet. At running back, we got Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, James Cook. So if I was looking at anyone at running back, it'd be Jacobs, Taylor, Kyron, or even Chase Brown, who I'm very high on. And I'm so high on Chase Brown that I almost want to take him here. But we'll see we'll see. And then after that, I mean, Drake London, Lad McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins at wide receiver, Garrett Wilson. To me, and then Trey McBride and George Kittle are there at tight end. I really like this tier of running back here. A lot of these wide receivers are kind of in a similar tier for me. I mean, maybe Drake London is a step higher. But I think I'm going to go running back here with these options. Who do I want to go with? I mean, Josh Jacobs to me seems like the kind of like the safest bet. I know a lot of his production last year was kind of predicated on getting into the end zone. But I will say, I do think that there's a good chance he can do that again. I see no reason why he wouldn't be able to do that. Bucky Irving going in that spot is also kind of notable that he went that early. I love Bucky Irving as a player. I just don't know if I'm in on him that early. Things have to go very, very right for him to pay off at that ADP. And taking him ahead of some of these guys is very risky. The thing, man, I'm very torn here because now that I'm sitting here kind of yapping, Drake London to me does kind of stand out above a lot of these receivers that are left. Will one of these tight ends fall to me? If I wait at running back, to me, I'm cool with Jacobs, Taylor, Kyron, and Chase Brown. But if I wait, are any of those guys going to get back to me, though? Because if you look at who's drafted, 3 of the 5 teams have taken a running back already, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't take another one. I think these 2 teams are very much locks to take a running back. And it's very tough. I think I'm leaning Josh Jacobs here. If we take a look at his production last year, just pull up the box score. I mean, he was very good for fantasy. Huge touchdown scorer. I do think Jordan Love is due for some touchdown regression. He was dealing with an injury last year, and he didn't throw touchdowns as much as you would hope. And I'm more confident in that offense than I am like the Colts offense, for example. Even though Jonathan Taylor, I have him in Dynasty and he's a great player and he could very well beat Josh Jacobs. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs here. He's not someone that I have been like high on necessarily in my mind, but to see where he's going in this draft, I think that's a very, very solid pick as my running back 1. And hopefully he breaks that trend of himself having like a good year and then a not so good year. So Drake London goes next. That's who I would have gone with. If I had gone wide receiver. Josh Allen, quarterback of the Bills, goes next. So our first quarterback off the board. You got to invest in those guys early. JSN of the Seahawks at wide receiver goes next. Then Lamar Jackson, quarterback of the Ravens. Kyron Williams and Chase Brown at running back go next. So team 1 has 3 stud running backs with Bijan Robinson, Kyron Williams, and Chase Brown. I was really hoping Chase Brown would make it back to me. And honestly, this is my first mock draft, but from what I've seen from other mock drafts, like being in the middle isn't necessarily the best place to be this year. I can't explain it really other than saying like I just feel like you're kind of reaching on players a lot of the time. Like I kind of think I want to be at the turn where you can honestly either turn I think would be good. But I'm dead in the middle right now, so we're gonna play this out here. But Ladd McConkey, wide receiver of the Chargers, Jonathan Taylor, running back of the Colts, Trey McBride, another tight end of the Arizona Cardinals, there goes off the board. So Team 4 took Saquon Barkley in the first, and then they filled their 1Z positions with Josh Allen at quarterback and Trey McBride at tight end. That is a strategy that honestly I don't love. You clearly have your 1Z positions locks up, which is nice, but your running back and wide receivers who you have to play multiple of, especially in a league here where we have 2 flexes, that is always risky. And then Breece Hall goes off the board next with the 3-5. So I am glad that I took Jacobs there because he's my running back 1. If I would have gone Drake London or a 1Z position with quarterback or tight end, I would be stuck looking at, Breece Hall, James Cook, Omari Hampton, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard as my running back 1. And some of those guys I do like, but in this situation, I am definitely a fan of Josh Jacobs being my running back 1 over those guys. So now, if we look at who's on the board here, we got Tyreek Hill, who I have in Dynasty, and I think could bounce back, but, he's older. And a lot of production did go to Jonnu Smith at tight end, and he's gone now for the Dolphins. But he's 31 now, and he had a down year last year. And it's pretty rare that you see a guy bounce back, after having a down year at 30 years old. 2 years ago, he had 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns on 119 receptions and 171 targets. Last year, only 123 targets, 81 receptions, 959 yards, and only 6 touchdowns. So still a good player, still a good year, but not up to Tyreek Hill standards. And a lot of these players that are left, I kind of feel like, okay, do I want, like, no one really stands out. Like at running back, honestly, I know I kind of talked down on James Cook, but he's standing out here as kind of a nice pick at running back. Granted, I'm not super into that pick. It's hard to explain. I think it's a good pick, but I'm not in on him, if that makes sense. Then Hampton has question marks. Where is he going to be the starter with Najee Harris there? Alvin Kamara, if Derek Carr was there, even if the offense didn't project to be great, I would love all the checkdowns and Derek Carr being there as a veteran. But the Saints offense might be the worst in the league with Radler and Show battling it out for that starting spot. So I'm not going him. Kenneth Walker is someone who I love, but he is always injured and he's dealing with a foot injury right now. So Chuba Hubbard is there. At wide receiver, you got Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson. And then at tight end, we do have George Kittle. In all transparency, I was hoping that George Kittle would fall to me, but being at the 3-5 here, this is kind of what I was saying, where I almost wish I was at the turn here where I could wait a little bit longer and hope that Kittle falls to me. Because taking Kittle here at the 3-6, that's a little rich for me. If I'm able to get him at the end of the 3rd or beginning to middle of the 4th, that's where Kittle becomes arguably the best value in the draft. And then so right now, I'm not taking Tyreek Hill. The only real discussion here is T. Higgins or Garrett Wilson, in my opinion. At wide receiver, James Cook is there, but honestly, I like, Chuba Hubbard and James Conner about as much as James Cook. So I think I'm fine waiting at running back. And then the only question is, do I take Jaden Daniels here? There are a few more quarterbacks in a similar tier. You got Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow at quarterback. I'm gonna pass on the quarterback. I'm gonna go with T. Higgins here. I don't know if I've ever drafted T. Higgins, maybe once before, but last year he had a great year. He got that big contract extension, and yes, he is the 2 for the Bengals. Next to Jamar Chase, but it's more of a 1A, 1B situation. He's got weak winning upside, and the Bengals defense projects to be pretty bad this year, especially with Trey Hendrickson, his contract situation. I'm guessing they'll get it figured out, but I don't know. Maybe they won't. The Bengals front office is a lot like the Cowboys, where they're kind of known to mess things up. So I am going to go with T. Higgins here. Higgins and Jacobs are both guys that I'm not necessarily, I haven't mentally been thinking like, oh yeah, I have to get those guys. But with the way that this draft fell, I think that is really great value. After Higgins goes Terry McLaurin, wide receiver of the Commanders. I think it's a little bit early to me. I know he's a great player, but he's dealing with a contract situation as well. A lot of those situations going on right now, and a lot of his success last year was on the back of touchdowns, and it just played out where like his touchdowns were distributed in a way where even if he had low yardage, the touchdowns boosted his performance that week. Or if he didn't have touchdowns, he had the yardage. And don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player, but you know, with the mobile quarterback there, with them bringing in Deebo Samuel, if the touchdowns aren't there, I'm worried that a third round ADP might be a bit steep. Tyreek Hill goes next, and then Jaden Daniels at quarterback, Garrett Wilson at wide receiver for the Jets, Mike Evans, wide receiver of the Bucks, Marvin Harrison, wide receiver of the Cardinals. James Cook goes off the board, and I was thinking about taking him at the 3-6. He goes at the 4-1. George Kittle does go off the board. He's the guy that I was really hoping would make it back to me, tight end of the 49ers. So again, that's where being at that turn right there, that would be nice to be able to kind of wait and take the value there. Jalen Hurts, another quarterback off the board for the Eagles. Devontae Adams, wide receiver of the Rams. Alvin Kamara, running back of the Saints. And Omarion Hampton, running back of the Chargers, the rookie. So I'm on the board here. The quarterback landscape has definitely dried up a little bit. The elite mobile rushers are gone with Lamar, Allen, Daniels, and Hurts. The clear number one quarterback remaining is Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. He is the one non-mobile, non-rushing quarterback that I am happy to go in on early in a draft. He's going to need a lot of those passing touchdowns to pay off at his ADP. But, you know, in the fourth round here, that's a lot different than taking, you know, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson in the second. So if I were to go Burrow here and get the stack with T. Higgins, that's another factor of me maybe taking Burrow here. That is a juicy prospect here. So let's just say I would have gone Jaden Daniels with the third round pick instead of T. Higgins. So we can look at this in a mock draft. It's important to do this. So would I rather have had Jaden Daniels? And let's say, you know, we look at the wide receivers. We got Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith. Or if we look at the running backs, I honestly like these options more. So let's do this for our exercise. We'll do, would I rather have had Jaden Daniels and Kenneth Walker or Chuba Hubbard? Or would I rather have Joe Burrow and T. Higgins? Honestly, that is very close to me. I do tend to lean the Higgins and Burrow side, one, because of the stack, and two, because if you look at the remaining receivers, I think Higgins as my wide receiver 2 is much more secure than a guy like, you know, Rashee Rice with the suspension, DJ Moore. Who knows if Caleb Williams is the guy at quarterback? They have a ton of mouths to feed there. I know they brought in Ben Johnson, and I think DJ Moore is the number one there, but there are a lot of weapons there. Metcalf, I think, is a solid pick, but you got quarterback questions with, you know, is Rodgers still good? I mean, he was good for fantasy last year to get, especially once Devontae Adams got there. So, you know, I think I'm happy with what I did, and I am going to go with Joe Burrow here to complete the stack. And I guess I am hoping that Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, or James Conner get back to me. I don't think that's likely, but I don't normally go quarterback this early. I'm going to try it here. I'm going to experiment with it. And Joe Mixon is another guy that I was very in on, but he is dealing with this foot injury, and he's 29 years old now. So I'm hoping he goes off the board, and I'm not tempted to take him. But let's go Joe Burrow here. You know, it's possible that I regret this decision, but that's why we're doing a mock draft. You know, if I didn't go Burrow, I probably would have gone Chuba Hubbard or Kenneth Walker. I probably would have gone Chuba. I think Chuba is the safe pick there, but Chuba goes next. DJ Moore, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy, both wide receivers of the Chiefs, go. That's interesting. DK Metcalf goes with the last pick of the fourth round. Then they come back and take Sam Laporta at tight end. Kenneth Walker and James Conner go back to back. Those are two guys that I was hoping would get back to me. Cortland Sutton, wide receiver of the Broncos, and then Joe Mixon goes the pick before me. So thank goodness he was not on the board, because I would have been very, very tempted to take him there. So now I'm on the clock here. I'm not in love with a lot of these players. I mean, DeVonta Smith, Zay Flowers, David Montgomery, RJ Harvey, Jamison Williams, Tedero McMillan, George Pickens, Isaiah Pacheco, Travion Henderson. At tight end, we got TJ Hawkinson. Like, these are a lot of players that, you know, I like, but don't love. Yeah. Part of me is regretting going with Joe Burrow there. There are some running backs left. I mean, honestly, like, I'm looking at a guy like DeAndre Swift down there. I mean, I would rather have Swift than a lot of these guys that are up here. He's one of my favorite values in drafts. I might just play the game and hope that he gets back to me as my running back too. And at this point, man, I think, you know, DeVonta Smith might be the pick. I mean, he's not a flashy pick, but like I said, I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to just run the ball every play like they did last year. And again, DeVonta Smith isn't someone that I've been heavily targeting, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, aside A.J. Brown there. But, you know, David Montgomery is tempting here at running back for the Lions. I just don't know if he's worth a 5th-round pick. Last year, again, a lot of his production was touchdown-based, which I expect him to have a lot again. I mean, he had 12 last year, 13 the year before. Is Jahmyr Gibbs going to be more involved? I don't know. So the question really is between David Montgomery and DeVonta Smith. I already have 2 receivers with CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins. I have 1 running back with Josh Jacobs. I'm going to go DeVonta Smith here. And next off the board goes Zay Flowers, wide receiver of the Ravens. David Montgomery goes with the next pick. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver of the Dolphins. RJ Harvey, running back of the Broncos. Tedero and McMillan, Carolina Panthers wide receiver. Travion Henderson, running back of the Patriots. So Harvey and Henderson, couple of rookie running backs, go off the board in the 5th round. Jamison Williams is actually someone that I was considering there. I think he's got a little bit more upside than DeVonta Smith, but with me already having CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins, I mean, I feel like DeVonta Smith is someone who, you know, he's going to go in there, get me solid points most weeks, and CeeDee Lamb and Higgins can go win weeks for me. George Pickens goes off the board with the 6-2 of the Dallas Cowboys. Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkinson go next. Running back and tight end there for the Vikings. Isaiah Pacheco, running back of the Chiefs. And then another Viking, Jordan Addison at wide receiver, goes off the board with a 6-6. I don't hate that value in general, but he's likely going to miss a few games here. With his DUI case, he's probably going to miss a couple games. And is he good enough to hold on the bench, not be able to put on IR for 2-3 games, whatever he ends up getting? I don't know. Especially, you know, is JJ McCarthy going to be able to supply fantasy production to, you know, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison? That remains to be seen. So we're looking at the board now here. At quarterback, I mean, I'm not taking a quarterback, but Mahomes, Mayfield, Bo Nix are there. Running back, Quinshon Judkins is ranked all the way up here. I guess he's dealing with that legal situation where he did something not very nice, and I assumed he would be suspended. And he's a rookie. The offense might not be good. I mean, truthfully, the Browns offense could be good if Joe Flacco is the starter with all those wide receiver weapons they have and Njoku at tight end. But I'm just gonna kind of avoid that situation just because it's a little messed up right now. At wide receiver, you got Travis Hunter, Chris Olave, Jerry Jeudy. You know, I'm not taking Travis Hunter this early. Just because, I mean, I think he's going to slot in primarily as a wide receiver. Last I heard, he was listed as a starting receiver and a backup cornerback, last I heard. But, you know, Brian Thomas Jr. is still there. Is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to make them both really good? I don't know. Maybe. And in the 6th round, this is probably fair value for Travis Hunter, but Chris Olave, you got worries with the offense. He's got his concussion history. He takes one wrong hit and he's out of there. I honestly am more comfortable waiting on some of these other wide receivers further down the board. So I need a running back. This is a really good place for me to take a guy that all offseason I've kind of thought was a good value. And now that I'm doing a mock draft, I can kind of see it like come into play here. DeAndre Swift, running back of the Bears. Look, no one is going to say that he's like this Hall of Fame caliber player, but He's on the Bears offense. He should be their starting running back. Ben Johnson is coming in. And I think that they wanted to draft a running back, but they kept getting sniped in the NFL draft. So DeAndre Swift is the starting running back. Roshan Johnson is there as the backup. And then they did draft Kyle Monagai. But I think Swift is good enough to be the starter there, hopefully. And even if he's not, this is a 6th round pick, and I think that it's worth the risk there. Other option in consideration is Kaleb Johnson and Brian Robinson, so a couple other running backs. But I'm going to go DeAndre Swift here. Judkins goes next. Tony Pollard, running back of the Titans. Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley of the Titans at wide receiver. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Olave of the Saints. Brian Robinson, running back of the Commanders. Chris Godwin, wide receiver of the Bucks. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver of the Browns. And then Travis Kelce, tight end of the Chiefs, goes next. I am back on the clock here. And, you know, this is also another important exercise to do here. So if I were to go quarterback, Baker Mayfield is the highest rated quarterback on the ADP list right now. Bo Nix is up there as well. Those are two guys that I love a lot in the 7th, 8th round here. Let's just say I would have passed Burrow. Okay. Would I rather have Burrow and, let's say, I don't know, Kaleb Johnson or whoever I draft here? Or would I rather have Baker Mayfield here and Chuba Hubbard earlier? At that point, I know I have the stack with Burrow and Higgins, which probably makes me lean Burrow still. But if you would have told me I could for sure get Baker Mayfield here and then have Chuba Hubbard as my running back 2 instead of DeAndre Swift, I think that's very enticing. I still think that going Burrow there wasn't necessarily bad because Burrow does have insane upside, especially with that stack. But, you know, it's just one of those things to consider. Like, you know, maybe I should have gone with Chuba Hubbard, but going with Burrow and Higgins, man, I feel like it's so much fun. So I'm going to stick. I'm kind of glad I did that, but I think either way, I could have built a team either way. And if Baker Mayfield would have gone before this pick, you know, I would hope that, you know, maybe Bo Nix could make it back to me. And I know Baker Mayfield, you know, he's kind of due for some touchdown regression here, you would think. With him having 41 last year, I don't know if he's going to get 41, but I think he's a very good bet for 30. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They brought in the rookie there. I forget his name. He's probably coming up here. What is his name? Why, dude, for some reason, whenever I record these podcasts, I literally blank on people's names. Emeka Egbuka. My defense, it's not like it's Bob, so maybe that's why I forgot, but I should know that. Emeka Egbuka. So looking at who's left here for the skill position players, I mean, at tight end, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, Jonnu Smith. I don't think I'm going to reach for those guys yet. Roma Dunze, Jacoby Myers, Khalil Shakir, Debo, Cooper Kupp, Stefon Diggs. You know, those guys are some of them are intriguing to me. I'm actually very in on Jacoby Myers as like a really solid depth piece. I think he's being overlooked a little bit. He's always solid. And with Geno Smith there, I know they have Brock Bowers and they drafted Besh, but you know, if Jacoby Myers could end up being the number 1 receiver there if Besh doesn't, you know, if he isn't great as a rookie. Kaleb Johnson as a rookie running back, that's also very intriguing to me, especially as someone who's a little lacking in the running back department. Obviously, Jalen Warren is there as well. So they're going to be competing for snaps. But if I don't go Kaleb Johnson here, I mean, the running backs really dry up here. You got Tracy, Jalen Warren, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams. So I'm going to go Kaleb Johnson here. I drafted him in my rookie draft, like I talked about in Dynasty. And I think he's going to get opportunity in Pittsburgh as a rookie. I don't know how much. That's the real question here. So Roma Dunze, Tyrone Tracy, Cooper Kupp, Khalil Shakir, Bo Nix, Jalen Warren. So Bo Nix did go off the board in the 7th round there. Jacoby Myers, Debo Samuel, Mark Andrews, Najee Harris, Baker Mayfield, Jonnu Smith. I mean, Baker Mayfield almost made it back to me. That would have been even more insane if I was able to get Baker in the 8th round here. That would have been, yeah. At that point, I probably would have preferred that over Joe Burrow if I could get, you know, Chuba Hubbard and Kaleb Johnson and then go Baker Mayfield instead of taking Burrow in the 4th. But we're going with the stack, baby. We're going with the stack with Higgins. And then Jonnu Smith, tight end of the Steelers. I am very out on that pick in the 8th round here. He had a great year in Miami last year, and he's a very athletic, gifted player. But I mean, they already have. Oh my God. What, dude? Every time I record a podcast, Pat Freiermuth. They already have Pat Freiermuth there at tight end. Oh my goodness. I promise you, in my everyday life, I'm like an encyclopedia of football names. As soon as I start recording, can't remember anyone. They have Pat Freiermuth there at tight end. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to like distribute the ball to all these people? With DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith as like the 1A, 1B situation at tight end. I don't know. I just feel like there's not a lot of upside there. So I'm on the clock here. And, you know, just going off of their own ADP here, we got Travis Etienne, who I think might be a value, just because he's basically forgotten at this point. You know, maybe there's a reason for that. He was really bad last year, probably the biggest bust in all of fantasy. You know, Tank Bigsby is there. They brought in Bashal Tutin. So I don't know if I love that pick, but at this point in the draft, it might be worth it. Other running backs, I mean, Javonte Williams, Cam Scatterby, Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet. Jordan Mason is someone that I'm maybe targeting later in the draft as a really good value. But I honestly, if you look at the wide receivers here, some of these guys really stand out. Like Stefon Diggs, I'm kind of in on that. Because last I heard, it's looking like he might play week 1. I mean, he tore his ACL in week 8 last year. But the hope is he's ready to go in week 1. And with Drake May there, I mean, there's some upside, you know, with May at quarterback, and he should be the clear one there. Other than that, you got Jaden Reed of the Packers. I had him in a couple leagues last year, and I benched him in week 1 when he was like the wide receiver 1 overall, and I was just chasing that high all year, and he was just so disappointing most weeks. You'd play him in a juicy matchup, and he would just disappear. You know, there's just so many options there, so I'm not going to go through that again. Ricky Pearsall is also very intriguing to me. You know, they got Juwan Jennings and George Kittle. Those are kind of the main pass catchers there. Oh, they also signed Chosen Anderson, Robbie Chosen, whatever he's calling himself these days. That's how you know it's a little desperate there in the wide receiver room. And then Matthew Golden, you know, rookie of the Packers at wide receiver. Again, I'm not really in on that situation, but, you know, I'm not in on him as a prospect really, but, you know, there's always the hope. And then Juwan Jennings, another 49ers wide receiver. So I'm not touching Ayuk. Heck no. I'm probably going to go Stefon Diggs here. I think that, to me, that stands out as like a very good value. Jaden Reed, Ricky Pearsall goes next. Njoku, tight end of the Browns. That's someone who I was maybe targeting later. He goes next. Travis Etienne. And then Matthew Golden, Juwan Jennings, Evan Ingram, tight end of the Broncos. And then a big run on quarterbacks. Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, and Justin Herbert. Kyler Murray in the 9th round stands out as a value to me. You know, Jared Goff is obviously a good player, but he's more of a streamer to me because he's non-mobile. He'll have his weeks where the running game just does everything. Justin Herbert, talent-wise, should be, you know, up in like the, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th round, but they want to run the ball there for the Chargers, but he's very talented. But Kyler Murray, I know last year he was a huge disappointment, but, you know, he's a mobile quarterback, and he's been good for fantasy in the past. So in the 9th round, I would have been willing to take a risk there. Definitely not like super confident in that. I probably would have liked to pair Kyler Murray with another passer, and I'm not a fan of this. The Josh Allen manager, who also took a tight end, so they went Josh Allen and Trey McBride in the 2nd and 3rd. They drafted Jared Goff in the 9th round. Like, why? You know, you're never gonna play Goff over Josh Allen. The Bills have a week 7 bye. Like, you're going to hold Jared Goff until week 7? And then who do they play in week 7? Okay, so the Lions play the Bucks. I mean, that could be a shootout game, I guess. They're at home in Detroit. But you shouldn't draft a streaming quarterback to play, you know, halfway through the fantasy season, especially when you already took 2 onesie positions in the 2nd and 3rd round. Like, you know, they should be taking some. I mean, who do they have here on their team? They're pretty stacked at, I shouldn't say stacked at wide receiver, but they've taken 4 receivers: DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Ricky Pearsall. I say add to that, go Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney, Egbuka for some upside. Running back is a little dry. They have Barkley and Pollard. I mean, they could go Javonte Williams, Cam Scadaboo, Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, none of those names are really great to me, but even drafting a guy like J.K. Dobbins, who you could probably get in the next round, but that's someone who should see work at least early, as he's, you know, competing for snaps with a rookie RJ Harvey. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of just drafting a backup quarterback there. You know what I mean? But anyways, moving on. I'm on the clock here. You know, there's a few tight ends that I'm okay streaming, but at this point, a lot of them are very similar in a tier to me. So I'm not going to reach on any of them, especially because like Tyler Warren, rookie tight end, is the top of the list right now on this platform on Sleeper. And I'm just not super in on that situation. You know, at running back, it's really disgusting. I mean, I could use another solid running back here, but again, like Javonte Williams, that's very gross to me. Plus, I have CeeDee Lamb already for the Cowboys. Cam Scadaboo, I love as a player. Is he gonna work in? I mean, this blurb here says he's unofficially listed as a Giants running back 3, behind Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. Again, that's not anything official, but it's a bad offense. Like, am I really gonna, if I'm gonna take a shot on a running back at this point, I don't want it to be a committee on a bad offense. Honestly, I was kind of hoping that Jawan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall would make it to me. I'm not taking Brandon Ayuk. He's coming off of a bad knee injury. There's still no timetable for his return. He's probably not going to be there at the start of the year, and he wasn't good last year when he was on the field. So Josh Downs is someone who I'm interested in for the Colts. I'd rather have him over Pittman, especially at this stage of the draft where I'm kind of looking for upside. A couple rookies with Egbuka, Jaden Higgins of the Texans. Darnell Mooney is someone who I was pretty high on as like a later wide receiver pick, especially if you went kind of running back heavy, or you took an early running back or quarterback and you needed wide receiver help. He's someone who I thought would be like a really solid depth piece, and he still might be. He is dealing with a shoulder injury, and there's still no timetable for his return. Assuming he's good to go for the season, I think he'll, you know, be fine. You know, he had 992 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. I think he's a solid depth piece, but just because I'm going for upside, I already have really good wide receivers with CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, DeVonta Smith, and Stefon Diggs. I'm going to go with Josh Downs here and hope that, you know, I hit on the upside. And he's someone that will potentially play, as we have 2 receivers and 2 flexes here. You know, and right now Caleb Johnson is in my flex, but Josh Downs or Stefon Diggs could very well take his place there. So, Brock Purdy after me. Brock Purdy, Cam Scadaboo, Tyler Warren, tight end of the Colts rookie, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, Darnell Mooney, Zach Charbonnet, Dalton Kincaid at tight end, Jaden Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, Tucker Kraft at tight end, and then I'm on the clock again. Tucker Kraft is someone who I'm honestly pretty interested in. I would have maybe considered him here if I was on the clock. Tight end of the Green Bay Packers. Luke Musgrave was supposed to be the bee's knees there at tight end, but Tucker Kraft really flashed. He got in the end zone. He broke tackles. It's a good offense. There are a lot of pass catching weapons there, which does limit his upside. You know, if you truly want like an elite tight end, they pretty much have to be the number 1 or maybe number 2 pass catcher on their offense. But in the 10th round, that's a very good value for Tucker Kraft. So I'm on the clock here. Looking at the running back situation, I talked about him earlier, Jordan Mason of my Minnesota Vikings. I love this value here in the 10th round. You know, there's a lot of sort of backup running backs here. You got Tajay Spears, Rashad White. J.K. Dobbins could be the 1A for the Broncos. Tank Bigsby could be the 1A for the Jaguars, but I do expect a committee in both of those situations. And after that, it dries up fast. But Jordan Mason, to me, not only has the chance to be a starter over Aaron Jones, but it's a good offense with the Vikings. as long as McCarthy isn't terrible, which I don't think he will be. Like I said, the offense was really, really good with Sam Darnold, and I think there's a very good chance that McCarthy is better than Sam Darnold. Granted, he's a veteran versus, McCarthy, who's basically a rookie. I mean, he's a second-year player, but he was injured last year. Jordan Mason was really good with the Niners when he filled in for McCaffrey. And Aaron Jones, the starting running back for the Vikings, is not only already injury prone always, but he's old. Like, there's a very good chance that he misses time, or even if he's healthy, they want to limit his touches. So I think Jordan Mason is probably the pick here, especially because my wide receiver room is very locked in with CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, DeVonta Smith, Stefon Diggs, and Josh Downs. I could use some help at running back. I have Josh Jacobs as my locked-in starter. After that, it's DeAndre Swift and Caleb Johnson. Like, those two picks could be good, or they could be, nothing. People who I don't want in my lineup. The only other, really enticing picks here to me, other than that, would be Emeka Egbuka, just because of that, rookie wide receiver upside in that offense. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are there, but they're getting older. Godwin's dealing with injury, and they took Egbuka in the first round for a reason. Even if they're all healthy, I think Egbuka will have some big weeks. Keon Coleman is there as a second-year receiver for the Bills. He didn't really impress as a rookie, but as he's got an opportunity there. But I'm going Jordan Mason just because I think that's someone who I already liked as a draft pick, and I really need a running back. So Egbuka does go next, then Tajay Spears, then Keon Coleman, Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver of the Saints, Colston Loveland, rookie tight end of the Bears, goes next. Again, first round pick. I think he's a very talented player, but he's already a rookie tight end that is in an offense with a lot of mouths to feed and quarterback question marks. So in the 10th round, that's fair to take him there for the upside, but I just don't see it working out on a week-to-week basis. Rashad White, running back of the Bucks. Dak Prescott and Justin Fields go next. Justin Fields might be the best value in the draft in the 11th round as a mobile rushing quarterback who, he's the guy. I know he had that injury scare, but he had that toe injury, but he's been practicing. He avoided anything serious. So Jake Ferguson goes next at tight end, then Caleb Williams, and I'm on the clock here. J.K. Dobbins at running back. There's a few quarterbacks here. Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. I'm good because I have Burrow. If he goes down, I'll just pick someone up off of the waiver wire. Yeah. To me, when you draft a guy that early, you don't really need to swing on someone like that unless it's a high upside player. If Fields was here, still I might take him because of his rushing upside, but running backs, we got J.K. Dobbins, Tank Bigsby, Jaden Blue, Rico Dowdle, Bashal Tutin, Austin Eckler, Guerendo, who I am very in on targeting late in the draft as a McCaffrey handcuff, even if I don't have McCaffrey. If CMC goes down, he's going to be a good pick. Guerendo is. Trey Harris, Luther Burden, a couple rookie wide receivers. I don't hate taking that Trey Harris upside there. And then at tight end, it's Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, Isaiah Likely. I'm basically punting the position at tight end at this point, but if I was to draft a tight end right now, I'd almost rather have Zach Ertz than Dallas Goedert or Kyle Pitts, or even Chig Okonkwo way later. So I'm completely punting the tight end position. So right now I'm pretty much between J.K. Dobbins and maybe Tank Bigsby. I think I'm going to go Dobbins here. In that Sean Payton offense, there's a chance that he's going to be the running back one. Yeah, I think he's going to be the running back one to start the year at least, and we'll patch together the running back room as we go. But Jordan Love, Dallas Goedert, Tank Bigsby, Kyle Pitts, Trey Harris, Rico Dowdle, C.J. Stroud, Drake May, Luther Burden, Marvin Mims, Austin Eckler, and Jaden Blue go off the board. Here I am on the clock again. Guerendo is pretty high up the list here on their ADP for sleeper, so I'm probably going to go with him. I'll check out the tight ends here. Zach Ertz is there. If I take a look at the teams above me, they all have at least one tight end, a couple of them two. Would they take Zach Ertz? I know he's old and gross, but he's going to catch I mean, what do you have last year? 66 catches, 99 on 91 targets, 650 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, it's a good offense. I know they brought in Deebo Samuel, so a guy like Christian Kirk, I'm not going to draft him because I just don't know if the upside is there. So really, I'm pretty much between Guerendo for the upside as the handcuff to McCaffrey. He is expected to miss a few weeks. This is kind of a new injury a day ago. Guerendo expected to miss a few weeks with a shoulder injury. Jordan James is the only other real backup there. So who knows? You never know what's going on with this backfield here, but I'm probably going to go Guerendo here over Zach Ertz and then just hope Ertz makes it back to me. Another like good pick there could have been like Trey Benson as a high upside pick. I'm into him as well, but Christian Kirk, Ray Davis, Tootin, McCarthy, McMillan, Trey Benson, Ford of the Browns. That's not a bad pick there. He very well could be the starter. And honestly, I probably should have looked at Jerome Ford a little bit more. There's a very good chance. I mean, he's their starting running back. I probably should have gone with him, especially because I need a starter. I mean, not necessarily a starter. Like I'm going to go with, Swift and Caleb Johnson over him to start the year. But 2 weeks into the year, if they're not really doing much, if Caleb Johnson isn't getting as good of a split with Warren as you want, if DeAndre Swift is like bad and he gets passed by Roschon Johnson, Jerome Ford is probably going to be, he's probably going to start. It really depends on what happens with Judkins with his legal issues. But the only other running back there is rookie running back Dylan Sampson, who was drafted in the 4th round. So, I still like the upside of Guerendo, and I don't necessarily regret the pick, but Jerome Ford is definitely someone who I probably should have at least considered more. And here we are in the second to last pick here, second to last round. Zach Ertz did. I thought Zach Ertz made it back to me. He literally went off the board with the very next pick. So, I mean, at this point, I'm really going to punt the position here. There's no difference to me between like Hunter Henry, Mason Taylor is an intriguing rookie. He's got a high ankle sprain, of course. Mike Gesicki now with that Fant signing isn't great. Brenton Strange is someone who I think is being very overlooked, but he is their starting tight end for the Jags with Evan Ingram leaving the team. And they have good receiving options there, but in the last round of the draft, that's someone who I might pick. So I'm going to take a look at, who else is here in terms of like running backs. I mean, you got Algier, Sampson, who I mentioned, Braylon Allen, Jalen Wright, Roschon Johnson. Could take Roschon Johnson to, pair with Swift as a handcuff, especially because, I could use some running back help. So if Swift isn't the starter, maybe Roschon is, but that could just be a gross situation. At wide receiver, Jack Besh really stands out as like a high upside rookie. Cedric Tillman still being here is also like a little insane to me. I might actually just go with that. I mean, he was very good with Jameis Winston last year. Granted, it could be gross, but in the second to last round, I mean, he had a stretch there where he had, he had 8 for 81, 7 for 99 and 2 touchdowns, and 6 for 75 and a touchdown. Then the bye week, then he was 3 for 47 and then 2 for 28, and then he missed time with an injury. I don't know if he left that Pittsburgh game early or what. Was that the snow game too? I can't remember. So it's really between Besh and Tillman. That is a tough call. I think I'm going to go with Tillman. Go with Tillman. I think he's a good player. Thielen goes off the board next, then Bateman, Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, then goes Besh, Hunter Henry, Tyler Algier, Dylan Sampson, Quinton Johnston, Braylon Allen. I think that's a nice pick there. He's probably going to get work here for the Jets. It might be a bit more of a split than people think. That's kind of what I've been hearing. Hollywood Brown, not drafting him. Jalen Wright of the Dolphins. And then at tight end here, I pretty much have to go tight end. Isaiah Likely, he might require foot surgery. I knew he was dealing with an injury, but my goodness. I'm not taking Pat Freiermuth with Jonnu Smith there. It's really between Mason Taylor, He's a rookie who might be the number 2 for the Jets. You got Brenton Strange for the Jaguars. He's probably going to be their number 1. And then honestly, Chig Okonkwo way down here. I might just go with Chig. I mean, he's flashed at times, and if they actually have like a real quarterback there, their depth chart is very empty other than Calvin Ridley. I think I might go Chig Okonkwo. He is athletic enough where not only might he be of value, but he could like really surprise for fantasy if he's given the targets where he can make plays after the catch and get downfield. So I'm gonna go Chig Okonkwo. It's a little bit gross, but I'm gonna do it. Roshan Johnson, Blake Corum, Isaiah Likely, Pat Fryermuth, and Wan'Dale Robinson. So taking a look at the team here, this is my squad. At quarterback, we have Joe Burrow. Running back, we have Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Caleb Johnson, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, and Isaac Guerendo. Honestly, that for not taking my second running back until the 6th round, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I think one of those guys can fill that running back 2 spot, and hopefully a couple of them hit. You know, especially a guy like Dobbins, I think he'll help early in the season. Jordan Mason, I think he'll be solid if he, you know, gets more work, especially with a Aaron Jones injury, if and when that happens. Like, he's going to be really good for fantasy on that offense. So wide receiver, we got CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, DeVonta Smith, Stefon Diggs, Josh Downs, and Cedric Tillman. I love that receiver room. That's about as good as it gets. And then my biggest weakness is tight end with Chig Okonkwo, especially when I take a quarterback early in the 4th round. I'm definitely going to be less likely to take an early tight end. Just because whenever I've taken 2 onesie positions early like that, I really don't like my depth at running back and receiver, which is ultimately the biggest thing you want to worry about. But obviously tight end is a big area of concern here. I'm trying to think like where might I have like messed up. Like I wasn't going to take Laporta in the 4th. I'm glad I didn't take Hawkinson in the 5th. You know, if I look at the 6th round, like Kelsey went in the 7th. I didn't really want to take Kelsey over Swift. You know, maybe if Kelsey would have been there with my 7th round pick, I might have gone him over Caleb Johnson, but I don't necessarily love that pick other than just positional scarcity of tight end. And I wasn't going to take Jonnu Smith in the 7th. I mean, Mark Andrews is someone who I could definitely see paying off at ADP in the 8th round, especially with likely dealing with injury. But, you know, these guys kept going kind of like before I could really take them. Like after the 8th round, if Njoku or Ingram would have made it back to me, that probably would have been the pick over Josh Downs, but they both went. You know, and then I wasn't going to take Warren or Kincaid or there. If Tucker Kraft would have made it to the 10th round, maybe I would have taken him. I just kind of kept getting sniped a little bit where the value was not falling to me. And honestly, if you tell me that Okonkwo was like better than a lot of these guys that got drafted ahead of him, I wouldn't be shocked. Like obviously I'd rather have, you know, a Kelsey and Njoku or Ingram, or even a Mark Andrews. But yeah, I think this was a solid draft. You know, I think the one thing I learned is I don't really love being in the middle. And a lot of years it is good, but I mean, especially like, let's say you had like the 8th pick, like they got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, if you go all the way to the 10th pick, getting Derrick Henry, I mean, Derrick Henry might be the best value in this whole round. And then they come back and get Nico Collins in the 2nd round. I mean, you know, that's kind of crazy. And then, you know, they get Garrett Wilson there and George Kittle almost made it back to them. Like that's a pretty crazy draft spot to draft from. So I don't know. I learned a few things here. I learned that DeAndre Swift is a really good value. Stefon Diggs is a great value. Jordan Mason is a great value. Tillman very much might be a great value there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this draft, and we're going to do a few more mock drafts down the road. So make sure to comment down below if you're watching on the YouTube, or if you can comment wherever you're enjoying the podcast, what you want to see next. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it a lot. Make sure to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. Drop a like if you can do that on whatever platform you are tuning in from. And thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your mock drafts and the rest of your drafts. Make sure you're doing mock drafts before your real in-person drafts, because especially if you know the spot you're going to draft from, like do a few practice rounds. It helps you so much so that you don't tilt and like panic and not know what you're doing during your draft. Like have a plan, you know, oh, if this person doesn't get to me, I'm going to go this route. If I have to decide between these two players, I know I want to take this person versus panicking. If I take this onesie position, you know, maybe my team will look this way versus if I wait on this quarterback, it'll look that way. So I'm yapping, but just make sure you're doing your mock drafts. All right. Peace and love. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. All right. Bye.